to talk to we talk about like sort of like a well, like the introvert has like a deep well, and it's just like thought, idea, the reservoir. And I think for the extrovert, the well is like it fills up and then they pour it out. Like they fills up and then they pour it out. They fills up and pour it out. They just keep
pain. I think we'll get into that too. Like we were talking about empathy before. It's like I have no problem relating with someone's pain or empathy. It's like I'm in touch with your emotions more than I'm in touch with my own. Like hip hop has definitely been therapeutic for me though in that, because even the way I'm talking right now has so much more emotion than when I was younger. I couldn't even talk like this. I couldn't even go, hey, what's going on, man? I couldn't talk like that. It wasn't in my skill set. And little by little hip hop has definitely brought me out of that shell, being able to emote and to be able to tap into, like you said, the lion, and now I remember that. Like, so whenever I have to go give a presentation that's not about hip hop and just about me talking or whatever, now it's like, yo, remember you're a beast. Remember you're a lion. Remember.
Yeah. So I'm going to hit y'all with something that'll help. So take it to public speaking. We should do a whole episode on public speaking. So here's the thing about public speaking. I think most people who are introverts have been told like, oh, you're not good at public speaking. You're an introvert, right? You're timid. Oh yeah. I was like, no, it's just that the thing that you probably do well is seen as a crutch, right? Like if you're charismatic and you're outgoing, that's seen as like, oh, that's a good public speaker. It's like, no, that's just their gift. They're charismatic.
Right. One, two in the place to be. I go by the name of MC Pro. No, I go by Professor Lyrical. You checking out Introverse? We're about to get the illustrious Bernard up in here soon. We always got a lot to do at the beginning of this show. We always trying to get we're trying to get ourselves here. We're trying to get the clubhouse room going. We're trying to get the ambiance right. You know what I mean? We hope you enjoying your long weekend. What people sometimes call the unofficial last week of summer. I never buy that. Weather's beautiful. And we still got, give us our extra 16, 17 days. You know what I mean? But enjoy your tomorrow off. What up, Tree? I see you. Tree, I hope you taking advantage of this Labor Day weekend. I don't know what you're up to, but don't be up to too much. You know what I mean? You got to take it smooth. Take it chill. Bernard, truth be told, Bernard is usually earlier than me. So it's a little, I feel like bonus time. Where Bernard is always earlier than I am. He's getting everything ready. So, it's rare. It's rare when I get to be here early. Shout out to everybody who's put in the work, because that's what Labor Day is about. The history of Labor Day is crazy. When you read, I don't know if anybody knows the history of Labor Day, but when you read up on its history, the violence that was behind it, the compromise that America and the presidency and the nation had to make to quell the violence. Yeah, there was a lot of protests, right? The Labor Day parades and so forth. It was met with a lot of protesting labor unions, if you will. And we owe it to some of those protests and the compromise to say, hey, let's make a holiday out of this to get this extra day. So some wild stuff. And the funny part about that is I heard that on Fox News. Yeah, pro be watching some Fox News every once in a while. No, but it reminded me of some of the history that I knew about. But I just thought it was interesting that they were talking about the history of labor unions in a positive light. So that was some fair and balance from your friends at Fox. You will not hear that clip too often from me. So yeah, company tomorrow, cleaning. Yeah. We got a new puppy in the family, so it's a big day for us. We're gonna take the puppy out for the first time, do the walks and so forth. So, in fact, I got to get downstairs as soon as I can to get back down for puppy time, because the puppy is taking precedence in our life. Bernard has let me know that I didn't give him the link. So that explains. See, I told you Bernard's usually earlier than me. Let me give him the link here. Boom. There's a link, Bernard, if you're listening or watching. So Bernard now has the link to come in. That's always helpful. Bernard, I didn't see you over on Clubhouse, so I was thinking you were just slow to rise over there or something. I was like, oh man, what's up with Bernard? So if if Bernard's watching this, then he knows. So yeah, company tomorrow. I guess some people have company. I hope, is it Labor Day company, or is it just happen to be company on Labor Day? That's the big question. Like, are people actively celebrating Labor Day with like people coming over? I'm not sure, Tree. Is it just you or whatever? Oh, there's Bernard. Bernard's probably like, oh, thanks, bro. Thanks for the invite. So there he is. What up, Bernard? Check 1, 2.
Hello, what up?
There you are. I was like, boy, the usually punctual Bernard. I don't know what's keeping him. That Bernard. There he is
Yep.
on Clubhouse. I see you.
Yep. That me.
I said, I'm not usually aware of what to do with all this extra time when there's no Bernard here. Like, do I say a short story? Do I play the Bernard Hankins YouTube video of his TED Talk, which, by the way, I watched in full again today. Shout out to Bernard Hankins doing the TED Talk. If you haven't seen the Bernard Hankins TED Talk, you should make sure you do so. Poet, teacher, public speaker. I like the poet teacher part. Integrating people of color, Bernard Hankins, TEDx Charlottesville. Shout out to that if you're looking to search for it. By the way, that needs 10 times more the views than it has, so that's why we got to shout that out.
Yep. What up, Trina? Yeah, I was when I first did it. I was like, I'm about to take off. I was like, I'm out of here, world. I was getting all my stuff together. I was looking up speaking bureaus. I was emailing the TED speakers, like, yo, how do I get in? And they were like, oh, I don't know. I was like, come on, y'all. Y'all thought y'all were like speaking coaches. Y'all don't know how to get into the bureaus.
You know what? You could be a good excuse for me to join a speaking bureau. You know, I've had a lot of solicitations to join speaking bureaus, and I've never wanted to. If you want to join a speaking bureau, I'll do one with you. We'll do one as just us. We'll be the package. You want to do that?
We can discuss. I mean, it's possible because we can, like, if we do it as introverts. But yeah, I'm not putting on the suit and tie.
No, bro! I'd never put on a suit and tie. Come on, man. Well, once in a while I have, but why would you put on a suit and tie? What makes you think that?
Well, because some of these speaking bureaus, when you look at the pictures, everybody's like, because they treat it like a talent agency. Like, oh, when someone comes to us, we were able to point them to them, be like, oh yes, these guys, and everybody has the look. They have that look. Suit and tie, bringing you to the corporate. But that's going to connect to what we're talking about today. So maybe nobody cares anymore, but if they do care,
yeah. I mean, most of the ones that I know about, they're not necessarily like that. I mean, maybe there's I'm not looking at it that deeply or whatever, but most of the ones that I know of, they're not on it like that kind of level. So you see people in their chill clothes too. So
right. Well, yeah, we should look into that because I mean, especially what we're talking about today. I mean, because some of what we do could just be virtual.
Sure.
Like I'm good with not being in person. I mean,
well, a lot of them are in person.
Right.
So that's the thing.
Well, I'll start off with a story. Okay, so to get into our topic is about Introvirtual. That was one of my word plays. I haven't put it on Instagram yet, but when I was doing my walk and talk doing Clubhouse, I said introvert. I was like, oh, Introvirtual. Okay.
Right.
All right. So today's story, I woke up. I had a lot of energy, and so I was like, oh man. Normally, I hate going out here trying to find these churches because I've been trying to find a church, and everywhere I go, I'm just like, oh. And I was like, oh, but I kind of feel good today. And I was like, I should go out. And I was like, I don't want to go out. I was like, but I should go out. Whenever I feel that urge, like you should go out, I was like, all right, I got it, God, I'm going. And then it always turns out amazing. Even like it takes getting over that hump. So I go to this church. Let me tell you, these people is like pandemic day one. I go in there, they like put your hand over the thermometer, the sensor, taking your temperature. They got two. They got one on each side.
Wait. What kind of place was this?
This is a church.
What? I mean, what kind of church?
It's like Mount Zion Baptist African. It's like a lot of elderly people.
Really?
So I think it's mainly elderly people. That's part of the story. So I get in there.
Oh yeah, okay.
Hover over the thing. He's like, all right, do it. Then he got the hand sanitizer for me. He putting it in my hand. He's all right, going in left or right. They got two people out there, two thermometers. They got the little guns. They still up in it. Everybody masked up. Not one person without a mask. except for a couple people in the choir, but everybody masked up. I go to
Wow.
try to sit down, roped off seats. I was like, yo, is this for like
Wow.
reserve? No, like every other row was roped off, so you couldn't sit directly behind anyone. And then most people were like spaced out. I was like, oh, they still up. The elderly crowd, they're like, yo, we're not playing with this.
Mm-hmm.
um, so I'm looking around. I'm like, yo, this is just like the church I grew up in, like Baptist. They got the red carpet. They got the chairs on the stage with the red
Mm-hmm.
felt.
Mm-hmm.
Pastor got the red, like everything is red. Got the chandeliers, got the stained glass. And I'm looking around. I was like, yo, I'm like, nobody here is my age. Like everyone's like older
Mm.
or like a few little kids. I spot one woman. I'm like, oh, I think she might be near my age.
So you're saying this wasn't the pickup spot?
This was not the pickup spot.
This
No,
is not the church pickup
no.
spot, which
I
is
have been
one
to
of the finest pickup spots in the world.
I have been to this church before, not at church, but for other events. Um, so as the service is done, I was like, okay, I didn't really get a whole lot out of it as I kind of expected.
Right.
But somebody's walking out, and I'm like, oh, I was like, oh, this kind of a young person, got the ripped jeans on. And I was like, oh, they're probably in high school though. So I'm not gonna like go to them like, yo, what's up?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm walking out, and that guy who first saw me, he was like, oh, have a good day, sir. And then the guy standing next to him, he's like, yo, what up? What up? First I thought he was just saying like, what's up? Like, yo, hello. But he's like, yo, it's me. And he pulled down his mask. He's like, yo, it's Zach. I was like, oh, so this kid, he graduated right as I was taking the job at the school at
Oh, okay.
Albemarle where I just taught. So I was never his teacher. Like I met him a couple times.
Right.
And then he would come back actually when he was in college. Like amazing sound engineer. I mean, this kid is like 19 already, like doing stuff that I should know how to do still now. Like I'm talking about just EQ upon EQ upon EQ upon compressor. He told me, yo, I got my vocals dry and I'm letting the mic like he's just ridiculous with the mixing, like amazing. So I was like, yo, what you doing here? I was like, you the last person I expected to see here. So that's why you got to go out. You have to leave the house sometimes to meet
Mm-hmm.
people or see people again. You already know. So then he was like, yo, he's like, what are you doing now? I was like, yeah, I left Albemarle. He's like, what are you working on? I was like, I'm doing stuff like grants and camps. He's like, yo, how do I get into that? He's like, because I'm trying to do media and marketing and, all this stuff. And I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, I'll hook you up with the people. I'm going to try to get you on my thing. So we just sitting there talking about introverts, and I was like, I know you kind of introvert. You kind of sit there and you mix and you can focus. And he was like, yeah, exactly. And he was talking about, so it was just like the connection was there. So it's like, yeah, sometimes you got to leave the house.
Yep.
That's the moral of the story. Sometimes you got to leave the house, and the reward's not going to be there until the end.
That's right. And it's always good as long as you want to follow that brick road back and be like, oh yeah, this happened. Sometimes I'll think of an idea in my house right before I'm about to leave, and I go, oh, if I do that, that's going to change the trajectory of my day. And everybody like, do I really want to do that? Because it'll take like 3 minutes more, and I'll be like, will something have veered off the path for me? I get into those like little thoughts, and it's funny how like if you didn't, if I didn't go get that loaf of bread. Like, what's the ripple effect, and this is part of the life of the introvert. You got to be thinking of these things ahead of time. Shall I go out? Shall I not? Right now I'm in an all-time peak for loving going out. I'm like, my wife would be like, oh, I need a coffee. I'll be like, hey, I'll go get it. Like I'm all over that right now. Like I'm like, ooh, trip to the grocery store. Like, ooh, man, this is thrilling. You know what I mean? Like, because I go to the gym and I go to my place of employment, and anything else that hops into the music or entertainment industry that's local, I might make a trip to. Other than that, it's food and picking up my son. You know what I'm saying? That's it. There's nothing else unless I'm walking. That's it. My social life is the people who live in my townhouse area. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not leaving. I'm just not leaving. Occasionally I go to the mall with nothing to do, and I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna go get me a mall pretzel today, and that'll be like the big adventure. And I'll be like, oh, I gotta tell my son I'm thinking of getting a mall pretzel, and he might get excited enough to go with me. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I
Clubhouse for me is going out. So,
it's going out.
I'm going on Clubhouse. I'm going into the club tonight. Now they got the new houses features. I'm like, ooh, I'm going in someone's house. This is wild and crazy.
Yeah, I think it takes a specific person. Like, Okay, well, this is what I was telling Zach too. I was like, because okay, so this is what kind of sparked the idea. I mean, we talked about this before: pandemic, introvert, virtual. So I watched this CBS this morning, Sunday, and they were doing a story on people going back to work, and I'm like, is this still a story? Like I thought people were just back at work. So certain companies are like, no, you have to come in. Other companies are giving people like virtual. I think they just said Yelp said like, yep, everybody can just be at home,
Mm-hmm.
and they cut the like they I guess they sold their offices or something because they're like
Right.
nobody's using them.
Right.
And then other people like you can do a hybrid. So one of them with AT&T said, "Look, people are complaining now about having to come back in, but we made it very clear that this would be a temporary thing." And I'm sitting there like, "Yo, AT&T, you are literally a phone company. You are literally telecommunication. The whole point Alexander Graham Bell made a phone was you could be here and you could be here and you don't have to be here." But you're like, yo, but y'all got to come in though. Like
Right.
you got to come in. Yeah, obviously, if you got to clean the office
Right.
or, there's certain other things where you got to like run the
Essential.
cables,
Yeah.
right? But the whole point of your company is to connect people without being in person. So
Yeah.
you would think that the very
Right.
workers of your company could also work
Yeah.
telecommuting,
Right.
telecommunication.
I see these companies like that. I see like what they do. I can't even believe how many employees they have. Like it was one the other day. It was something like it was a video game company or something. Not even video game. It was like social media. Oh, I know what it was. It was Snapchat. Snapchat's cutting back like on like 3,000 employees. I'm like, how does Snapchat have 3,000 employees? Like in the first place, right? Like I don't know about you, but I'm thinking, okay, it's a tech company, like, and it's a pretty successful tech
Right.
company. Maybe it's got 300 employees and they're spread out around the country. It's like, nah, they got 3,000 employees that they had to, they're cutting back on. I'm like, oh my gosh. They tell me they're not in brick and mortar. Tell me Snapchat is not brick and mortar, that most of these 3,000 people are chilling somewhere, taking snaps. You know what I'm saying? Like that's their job. I'm like, I don't even know my password to get back on Snapchat anyways, but it's obviously a sign of why it's not doing so well. But
Mm.
yeah.
I never got on Snapchat. I got on there. I literally downloaded it once in class just to like as a joke for kids because
Oh,
they were.
really?
I was just like, yo, I'm about to get on Snap right now, and I said download, and they was like, yo, he
Boom.
doing it, and that's all
What?
I've ever done is download. I don't have a
I
username or anything.
I got kind of into like DJ Khaled posts and like I just for a little while I could find myself. I made a post actually pissed off people. Let me show you this. It ties into what we're talking about right now. I made this post on Facebook and I think I upset some people. And let me see how much it upsets you. Might upset you a lot too. Who knows? Let me scroll into it here. There it is. All right. So I'm gonna share this. See what you think. Boom. Here we go. Let me blow it up. I said, you see that? Ways not to be successful.
Oh yeah, I read that.
Right. And so I have like a lot of transgressions on here. A lot of people like I wasn't being very inflammatory with my replies, but I'm like, play video games at a similar clip you did before you were an adult. Watch college football like it matters. Binge watch anything and everything you like. Watch all 3 to 4 big sports teams in your market. Virginia's a little weird because it's like I never know who their market is, but have a hobby that you do almost as much as you play video games or watch college football. Party often. It's that easy. And there's a lot of upset people on there. I'm like,
Mm.
I'm like, I definitely do a couple, but I'm not doing 4. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like,
Right.
even if I am binge watching something, I'm thinking about, oh man, what else am I doing in my life that's like distracting from my focus? And that's what I mean about Snapchat. Snapchat was one of those things that just had to go. I'm like, man, I'm on Snapchat. Like, what is Snapchat doing for me?
Right.
Zero. It's like TikTok. It's like TikTok is really, I feel like it's sucking the life out of me. It's like, oh, I laugh for 30 seconds. And it's like, all right, watch 3, 4 big sports. Like, dude, I'm from Boston where big sports are the world, right? But I never watch the Bruins because I don't really watch hockey. And yeah, I watch the Patriots. I'm never watching the Reds. I'm even a Red Sox fan, and I don't be watching the Red Sox. I watch the Red Sox if they're in the playoffs or like a couple outs during an inning, but I cannot sit through baseball. I can go to a
Right.
game. I do watch the Celtics, and I watch every game. I watch. You know how many college football games I watch? Zero. You know what I'm saying? Because I realized it would be sucking years off my life. Now I like football, but I cannot be sitting around following college football. Like if there's a game on, I might watch a couple plays, see what the score is, right? And then I'm still thinking about it. I'm like, man, do I have time to be sitting around watching this game more than 5 minutes? You know what I mean? I'm just saying life is short. There's a lot of stuff to do. And if you sucked into many of these kind of almost meme-ish, trope-ish kind of
Right.
things, it's like, bro, like, especially this
Well,
one. I
well,
don't party.
yeah.
I'm saying,
I have a friend always talks about party with a purpose,
yeah,
or throw parties with a purpose. Well, funny enough, the thing that I honed in the most on your thing when I read it was
thanks,
the
Tree.
words clip. Like that's a word I started hearing people use.
Yes.
I never heard people use that word until the election. It was like the votes are coming in at a faster clip.
Oh,
And
really? Okay.
I was like, yo, when do people start using this word clip all of a sudden? Is this a new thing?
Oh, I've been using that
So
forever.
I picked up on clip more than anything. The other stuff I was like, yeah. I was like, oh, pros using clip. I was like, yo, he rhymes at a nice clip. Have you
I've been
seen this
saying,
clip of him at a fast clip?
yeah.
But okay. So to what I was telling Zach earlier,
Good to see
and
you gravitated to the essentials of the post.
I mean, I was just like, yeah. I
Right, right,
was
right.
there's
Check.
nothing to argue with.
No, they fall into your world, of course.
I was like, okay, people reading this, yeah, they probably will get offended. Okay, so I was telling Zach earlier, who I met at or reconnected with at church. I was like, yeah, well, he was saying he thinks the problem with the sort of work from home is that how you're gonna, monitor people. And I was like, yeah, well, there's certain people who do need monitoring. It's the people who aren't, like you're saying, self-disciplined.
Yeah. We're going to
And
watch football all day.
yeah, and honestly, I don't have a problem with that either. Because I think like that's what Google talks about. They were like, yo, we don't want to cut people off from the outside world because that's what's interesting and that's what's going to like be pulled and filtered into our company to curate new
Right.
ideas. Well, yeah, the question is, can you do that with a purpose?
That's right.
You know, like
That's
I
right.
personally, yeah, I could sit here. I think it's like anyone who has a craft. This is why I did a talk. I said, art is almost like being an introvert because it's introvert in nature. Like like to play the violin, you have to sit by yourself
Yep.
and play for like 4 hours and
Right.
sound good. It's not you're just by yourself and you're doing something that's hard. It's two levels
Absolutely.
of like, oh my goodness, like no one's here to help me and this is hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when you have a craft and you discipline yourself, like going to the gym is a type of craft, but art is a craft. So as we call it, a discipline that gives you that framework to be able to like chill, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I always listen to these comedians and they were saying like you listen like a Jimmy Fallon or whoever where they talk about, oh yeah, we would come in at SNL at the beginning of the week. It's like, what did we do? Like we just hung out. But by the end of the week, somehow we have a bunch of sketches.
Right.
And I think there's true. It's like the comedian people, they know there's something to the just hanging out,
Yeah.
making
Right.
fun jokes. But it's like they're in the back of their mind, something is brewing. Even though when
Yep.
you look at them, it's like, yo, what are y'all doing? Yo, we got stuff
Yep.
to do. It's not
Yep.
like they're like, yeah, we're just gonna figure it out tomorrow. Like they're trying,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a different kind of thing because they've done the prep work, like we talked about with the acting. When
Yep.
you've done that preparatory work for years and years and years, when it comes time to perform,
Yep.
you can then discipline all of that sort of spontaneity into something. But yeah, if you've never done that and someone says, hey, go home, you're gonna be like, great, I got food, I got family, I got friends. Like, yeah, you're gonna do what
I definitely found the food when I went home.
it's
Yeah.
it's not the environment because like there's kids who were in my class in the school environment, they would do that there. They'd be on their phone, they're eating food, like they're not focused because they haven't disciplined themselves. It's not about the environment. Oh, if we let people go home, they're gonna be unfocused. They're not focused in class
Mm-hmm.
or work. Like everybody's like, it's the environment. No, it's you. It's the
Mm-hmm.
individual. You have to discipline you.
Yeah, and that's hard to do on the fly. It's like, okay, no, we're going to give you. It's just like when kids go to college. Like, why do kids party when they go to college? Because they're not disciplined, right?
No
It's like, okay,
discipline.
right? You've been contrasted your whole life, and now it's like you can expand as soon as you get there. It's like, what are kids going to do? They're going to go nuts, and that's the thing. It's like, at what point do you let kids start doing more and more and giving them taste of freedom? And same with employees. I mean, I have this argument quite often with the workplace, and every place I've worked at, people who know me, uh, actually not so much at this place, but I internally have the same discussions in my mind, if not as formal. That most places I've been to, I've always argued. We've talked about this as well. Is like, well, why do we have to be here? Like, why do we have to be here? My work is relatively pretty good with that. Not, I mean, they could always improve, but other places I've been, it's like, nope. You need to be here at like 8 o'clock, 7:30, whatever the time is. And I'd be like, what in the world are we preparing to do? Like, what
Right.
is the work that we're preparing to do at 7:30 when classes start at 8:35? Like, why do I have to be here at 7:30? Like, I'm an expert at being ready at 8:35, but trust me, I'm walking in at 8:30. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm walking in at 8:30, and even those 30 minutes that I'm in my car are rehearsing what it is that I'm thinking that I'm probably going to be talking about. Like, that's just how I get down.
Right.
You asking me to be somewhere at an arbitrary time that nothing potentially is happening is crazy. And I was talking with my neighbor today too. Speaking of my townhouse stuff, she has a new job in teaching, and so we're always talking about that. And she's asking me different stuff or whatever. We're swapping advice and this kind of thing. And we thought talking about like where she's new at this place. She's like, "Yo, we got this crazy kind of PD schedule, and I know you're involved in the PD. They're making it. They filled up a week and a half, and they had no time to ourselves, nothing. She's like, we don't have a day, and I'm like, yeah. Sometimes I got to push for that too, like push for our faculty to have like at least a day or whatever. And there's this pervasive kind of idea that some administrators will carry where that yeah, if they have even a minute of the time, like they're going to be unproductive, they're going to be off at the shopping mall. My thing has always been like this at every institution I've been at. So what if people are at the shopping mall? If they do what they need to do and it helps them, so what? Because I'm definitely a dude who would go to the gym. I mean, I was playing basketball in between my classes and my students knew that. I was at Northeastern, shout out to Northeastern. Man, I had a schedule with my students. I'm like, okay, here's my class schedule. And I'm like, I'm show this as part of teaching. I'm like, look, I'm teaching Tuesday and I'm teaching Thursday, 2 classes back to back, and I got one on Friday. That would be like my schedule, let's say, right? And it would be like 9:30 to like 12:35. And I'm like, man, 12:35. A lot of people get into the gym at 12. What could we do? I got 7 people in my class who play hoop, and I'll be like, what could we do to prepare the court? Like for like we're
Right.
going to be coming. There's going to be a lot of us coming late. It's going to be 7 of us coming late. Could you guys be up and running and already have us in mind that we're like we would make these kind of plans so that when I get
Yep.
there, it's like boom, we're playing like that kind of discipline. And like I'd tell my class. Now, granted, not every one of them played hoop, but we'd be like, okay, here's what I'm doing. I'd tell every one of my class, be like, look, I'm definitely playing hoop when this class is done. So I'm encouraging y'all to be done early. I'm not letting you out early, but trust me, I want you out early because I want to leave too. Like, I don't want to be here to go over the details of the stuff that we missed. So if you're prepared, you're out early and I'm out early and I'm thrilled. And in college, you can do that. You can let the class go in 5 minutes if you really want to. You can't do it
Right.
every day, right? But you have a lot more freedom than you can do in high school. So I would always be pushing this agenda of be prepared, know what you're going to do. What are you going to do with your downtime? And it's the same in the music industry. Are you prepared for your song to be a hit? What would happen if we were talking about this on the Pro Quo show too the other day? What would happen if you suddenly came into that bag? What are you going to do when the 10 grand shows up? Do you have a
Right.
plan for the 10 grand so you don't go broke? What are you going to do if someone gives you freedom? What are you going to do with that new because I'm thinking as time is my biggest commodity, and as introverts we definitely do. Well, like, I can't wait for my downtime and I don't want you to disrupt it with nonsense. So I need to know I'm feeling it because I'm like,
Right.
yo, time is it's my biggest commodity. It's like,
Yep.
yo, and I am a master at trimming and cutting and splicing, and sometimes, something's gonna give. There's gonna be problems, but I do not live by I don't have big gaps in my schedule. I don't
Right.
have like, ooh, if the pro got an extra 2 hours. Pro never has an extra 2 hours. Why am I talking third person? But like, what I'm saying? But I never have an extra two
Right.
hours. My 2 hours, I'm preparing for if I get 2 hours, I know what I'm going to do with those 2 hours, and it throws me off if I didn't have that plan. Usually, I'm trying to think, how can I save 10 minutes?
Right.
And I love if I have an extra hour off, and once in a while I'll go walk with that time or something. But I'm going to be productive in the time that I have off. And I'm planning for it. And if we get people in the workplace to do that, kids to do that, I think that makes this whole, and getting back to our topic, getting this whole the whole virtual world, we won't have that, oh, kids had a learning loss or whatever. It's like, no, kids will be prepared for how to
Right.
maximize their time and their efficiency. But faculty has to feel empowered to have these discussions with their students and speak honestly. Just like I'm telling them, yo, I'm about to bounce to the gym. Like, I need you to know I'm in it for you too, but we're going to handle the responsibilities before we do the fun stuff. That's the big lesson.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let me share this screen, if you will. I always talk about this book. Um,
Yeah.
Daniel Pink, Drive: Surprising Truth About Motivates Us. My go-to reference. There's a TED Talk. If you don't like reading, I know people don't like reading, so
Let me take us out for a second to make
book or watching the TED Talk. Okay, but one thing he talks about in relationship to like work and being in person is he talks about this was called ROW, which is results only work environment. So he talks about this company called Atlassian, I believe. And I think there's another company called Medius, which I think was actually in Charlottesville, because he came down here from like DC and did some talks a couple times. So I guess he must have interviewed them. So he says, the boss came in and said, look, from now on, like, you don't have to be at work at a certain time or any time. Just get your work done. And he said like 25% of the people, they just needed the structure. Like they couldn't not do it. But the other people, it found its way. And some people work in coffee shops, got to pick up their kids or whatever.
Yep.
But he talks about this, and he talks about the whole book is about intrinsic motivation. It's about doing the task because you want to do it. And so he's making this case for like, look, this is the problem. Like, if you aren't already intrinsically motivated, and you give people freedom, they're gonna be, helpless. They're like, I don't know. You made me come in all the time. Now you're saying I don't know what to do. And I told you I experienced that with all my students. Like, hey, you can be free to do whatever you want in my class, and they just sat there because they've never been. It's like someone opening the prison gate, like, go. No, for real, you can go. And you're like, almost got me. So yeah, I think we could sit here and talk all day about like, the problems and complain and rant, but it's like, like in order, the only real answer is what we always talk about is actually instilling intrinsic motivation into students and saying, and adults, not just students who become adults and adults now, saying, look, the only way you're actually going to have this new introvirtual world is to have people who have an integrity to do the thing because it's important to them. Like when I think about my work, the work that I do that I don't even get paid for, I always tell people I'm a professional musician.
Right.
Like, do I get
Say that in
paid
the TED
to
Talk.
make music? Yeah, that's what I say. I'm a professional musician in the sense that I take it as serious as a profession.
Yep.
Do I get paid for it? Not necessarily. I mean, there might be some times where I got some money, but I don't make music to make money. I make it because I enjoy it. But I take it very seriously. And that's partially why I left my job. It was like, you guys don't take this serious. I take this serious. I'm coming every day ready to like make superstars. And you guys like, oh, this is a nice little elective. No, this is what I do. Like, this is who I am. So if you don't have that dutifulness about yourself, that sort of as he also says in the book, self-directed, or what I call like not just self-directed self-motivation, but like what's the word I'm looking for? It's like, it's not obligation in the drudgery sense, like, oh, I'm but it's like it's duty. I guess it's the best word. To me, it's a duty. And I love one of the word plays I came up with. Like, if you look at the word morale and moral, right? It's all when people say, oh man, the work morale is low, meaning like, people's spirits. I think there is this connection to the idea of something being moral and morale. There's a sort of like morality to the fact that you do work. Or as we say, work ethic. Like you say, are you ethical? I think that's interesting, the word work ethics. Like, so for me, I can't expect Pro to be excited about what I do. So he has a different ethic than I do. Like, you might stay up 8 hours and like, Pro, well, I feel the need to stay up 12 hours. I don't put that on you. But for me, I feel quote unquote guilty, or more like convicted. Like the word convict too, moral conviction. Like when someone is convicted, it's like moral trouble. But when somebody's really passionate, we say, oh, I have a conviction. So it's interesting how all these words connect: moral and morale, work ethic, and then conviction. So if you don't have that personal conviction, where you wake up, you're like, man, Bernard, what did you do today? Man, I just sat there and watched TV for 5 hours. What's wrong with you? I don't know. But like, I have these conversations with me. I direct me. I am the boss of me. I stay on my own case. Like, Bernard, you know better than this. You got all this talent. You got all of these things you want to do, and you wasted 5 hours just doing
Yeah.
nothing. I
Right.
don't need a boss.
Right.
I don't need someone to come in like, Bernard, what did you do today?
Right.
I'm my own boss.
But
So you have
how long though have you been like that? Has it been like 5 years, 10 years? Was something you instilled with? Like,
I think
how
my
long
whole
do you
life.
think?
My whole
Okay.
life. I think since playing with Legos.
Yeah.
Like you get up and you're like, I want to build this Lego thing. And you don't want to quit until it's done because it brings you the self joy to do it. So I don't
Mm.
think I think we all have it in us. It's like Ken Robinson says, like, you don't grow into creativity, like you grow out of it. I think it's
Yeah.
the same thing.
Right.
You don't grow into intrinsic motivation. It's pulled out of you.
Right.
You're
Right.
told
Right.
to start doing things because
Right.
the other thing he says is there's a if then versus now that rewards. He said most people are taught
If
if
then.
you do this, then we will pay you.
Yeah.
He said rather it should be now that you've already done the task, we will now you wait with now that now you've done the task, now that we'll pay you.
Mhm.
So you already done it for the correct motivation, and now the money on top of it is like a bonus. And that's how I feel when I go to work. I'm like, all right, I got paid too. Like the check comes, I'm like, oh yeah, the check. Okay, cash is like I've already paid myself intrinsically. I always pay myself first intrinsically.
Mm. That's a nugget right there. Yeah. The the moral, I think I know, some of the big ideas in the pink book without having read it. And I agree with a lot of the general idea of motivation comes with achieving at a high level, working to get better, um, having a good understanding of putting in that time will get you where you want to be. Like if you aren't seeing the results of the fruits of your labor, it's difficult, I think, in any profession. I think if you're not seeing, hey, this I did X, Y, and Z, and then like your if then kind of thing. If I put in this work, I'll get bigger in the gym. And if you're not seeing those results as quickly as you think you should, it's easy to lose motivation. I think the mastery point is hard to see in the short run. Like a lot of times we
Right.
don't reach mastery. It's a work in progress. But if you can trick yourself sometimes into seeing like, oh, I moved in the mirror and I just saw a little twitch right there. Like, man, I'll go in the gym, like work all week now. I just saw a little striation,
Right.
like, but it might have just been the lighting. Sometimes I'll go in the Marshalls try on clothes and I look much bigger and cut. I'm like, whatever Marshalls is doing, I love their lighting. Like, I got to bring that home. So I'm like, I just need to get the Marshalls and I'll feel better about myself. Like, I might need to go buy that $9.99 t-shirt just so I
Right.
feel better all week. It sounds silly, but it's sometimes those things tricking us in can get us there. But the other big piece is that purpose piece. And if you already have the purpose, that's why I asked you at what age. If you're already kind of aware of your purpose, I think it helps. And I think purposes can change, and I think people can have more than one. Personally, I think if you're aware of what's motivating you, it's easy to recall that and become motivated on the spot when you're feeling like a dip. I don't truly feel a lot of dips. I do have some days where I kick into overdrive and I realize, it's kind of like the prompting of my post earlier. I realize that, man, I'm doing a little too much chill. Like I need 5 minutes of chill to get back to 100%. But
Right.
I need the 5 minutes. I do need them. I might need 10 minutes here. And like I said, an hour or two, I feel like, oh my gosh, I feel so excited when I have that time and it's unplanned and unscripted because I'm
Right.
so used to scripting it all the time. That's rare for our young people. It's rare for our older people. It's rare for people at a company. Just say, you know what? Go take when's the last time your boss said, yeah, go take a couple extra hours for lunch? Those kind of things I'll say with new faculty. I'll say, what is the biggest reward you can give the students? And we'll sit around and we come up with these different manifestations of it, but it's usually time off. And
Right.
so if time off from your class is the biggest reward, that's probably telling. Like I hope my students don't say the biggest thing that they want off is more time away from my class. But let's be truthful. I can't take that necessarily as the biggest knock in the world because it's like they're not coming to my class 100% by choice. In fact, a lot of times it's compulsory that they have to complete
Right.
this particular course. So I can't think so mighty of myself that, that would hurt me. But at the same time, you want your students, once they're in your class, in other words, if they're not engaged by being in your class, you owe it to yourself to be making your class obviously more engageable, or people will want to be checked out and use
Right.
time as the biggest thing. It's just natural that people want more time to themselves. So how can we incorporate giving them time to themselves in the actual class, in the work? And sometimes that is, a previous job manager at an office, it was like, yo, I don't even want to see you back here for a couple hours. Man, that was
Right.
like the biggest reward you can give an employee, and like if I have someone say that to me, you know what, why don't you not come in Tuesday? I mean, you're doing so great. Just don't even come in Tuesday. Work from home. But what manager is doing that? Until COVID, it's not even on the frontal lobe of many
Right.
people. And I'm like, why are we not doing this? When if you ask me in a survey, I'm telling you, I want more time. And you start to see companies now, even before COVID, starting to come into it. Like, oh, we're going to come up with sleep pods and we're going to come up with
Right.
alternative schedules. And because they're a little ahead of the curve, they didn't need a pandemic to do it. But we're fearful. How do we
Right.
police the people who don't have that kind of intestinal fortitude or that kind of morale? So do we need to be training people, or do we need to look for that in the hiring up front?
Well, I think you said the key word police, and
Right.
that's the first thing I say. The problem is the current system is very much like a prison. It's
Absolutely.
like what you're saying is like, oh, I'll give you more time. It's like,
More
hey, you
time
just
off.
you earn some more like rec time out in the
Yes.
like
Yes. Yes.
out
Free
in
time in the
you,
quad. Yep.
yeah, a little more rec time, or
Pump some
when
weights.
everybody else comes into their cell, and that's what the kids get. Like, oh, great, I don't have to be in the prison as long. So it's already contextualized in like a prison mindset. So yeah, like even when you give
Yes.
people time, it's this weird reward because it's like, oh, so you're giving me back my freedom, which I should already had anyway.
Absolutely.
But the other thing, I think now that this is breaking up into this thing where people are like, okay, there's some virtual, there's some at home, there's some hybrid. I think, um, yeah, first you got to break the paradigm, like you're saying, like the pandemic broke the paradigm, so now people are more open to it, where it's like giving time is not seen as like laziness, because that's the thing that people fear. They fear that like when some
I
I mean,
see.
it's just like everything. It's like, "Oh, how come they don't have to work? We all are here, so we should all." It's like even if you like if you knew if you were done with your work early, they'd be like, "Well, you don't look busy." There's something about looking busy, right? So if you come in the office and people are in a sleep pod, someone would be like, There can be work getting done here." Like I always say with Henry Ford and the smiling in the factory, like, "You guys are smiling, can't be going to work here." But then you see like the WeWork. I don't know if you saw that documentary. They were trying to make these like live work places where people came and wanted to be there. That's part of it. Like Google, they're like, yo, we want you to be here. So that's why we got a chef on hand. That's why we got the gym. That's why we got all this stuff to play with. We don't want you to go home. We want you to work. We want you to
Mm.
like where you work. So
Yes.
stay here.
Stay
But the
here.
other
Right.
thing I was gonna say was like Google always gets credited with the 20% time. I think Daniel Pink said he's like, everybody thinks Google did this, like they weren't the first. But to your point too, it's like, okay, yeah, give people time, but it's like, yeah, what kind of time? Because Google, they're like, hey, take 20% of your time to work on whatever you want. So they're still there working,
Hmm.
but you opened it up to say, hey, look, don't work on what we tell you to work on. Follow your nose. Toucan Sam. Follow your curiosity. Follow your passion. And I think that's how Gmail came because
Yeah.
there's somebody sitting there who's like, man, I'm so tired of email. I want a better email. Well, give them
Right.
time to work on that. Like, why not let them work on their ideas and their passion where they want to
Yeah.
go?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that about my job. It's like I have my responsibility, one of my responsibilities is figuring out, what's kind of moving and shaking out there. Man, I'm reading Chronicle of Higher Education. I read like trade magazines, journals at my job. So I'm not reading them at home. I'm reading
Right,
them when I'm there. And I'm like, I'll usually find something within 20 minutes that's pertinent to at least one of the faculty, one of the administrators, if not everyone. And I get to be up on what's happening, like making myself abreast of what's happening
right,
in an area you like is a wonderful blessing. And if that was just part of everyone's job description, a la the Google, just take a small fraction of your day and just find out more about what's important to you. Because, we do in the paradigm of higher ed is we leave that to researchers, right? Research
right,
professors' dirty little secret is they get paid to research what they really like. They don't teach. That's what they're doing,
right,
right? And it's like, but
right,
the other faculty, the quote unquote teaching faculty, well, you're just, they're like the grunt worker. I'm coming in to teach the faculty. I'm coming in to teach the student, right? And we build that up and prop that up to be like, but it's like, well, what's your research component? Like, at least we'll call it action research, right? If it's rooted in something that you're doing in the classroom, maybe whatever. Like, at least let someone do that. Like, at least give somebody like, hey, like, do you write? Are you an author? I'm always trying to push this all the time. My faculty, like, what is it that
right,
you really do that really motivates you, and how can we build that up for you? And if you give time to them to just do the same thing, they don't need an invitation. I mean, full-time faculty, they can do what they want in their downtime. It's not like they're married to their desk at most institutions, anyways. But it's not. It doesn't feel like part of the ethos there. It feels like that's for
Right.
the research faculty. The rest of you guys, you better, like you said, yeah. If you're in an office or if you share an office with another faculty, you better look busy, or you might not even want to be there at all. Because if you
Right.
look like you're just sitting around googling stuff on your computer, it's not the look that we would typically associate with teaching faculty, and it's of course true in K-12. But higher ed, at least there's this component where the research faculty, they can be looking at, you think about the weirdest things in the world. I mean, think about what people's dissertations are in. It's
Right.
always crazy. I love reading the names of dissertations. It's like, that's what you do? Oh, and sometimes you have to break it down, especially science ones. You're like, what does that mean? Oh
Right.
yeah, I look at frogs cross-pollinating. Oh, okay, cool. Like, that floats your boat, and you're an expert on that. Oh yeah, I can tell you everything about the frog, and how many colors the different lizards can change or whatever. It's like, okay, when do you find time to do that? Right now. Okay, cool. It's a great job.
Well, the word that comes to my mind is product. Um, and I actually, okay, so one part of the reason that doesn't happen is because it's a very product driven culture.
Yep.
So if you see somebody like researching or exploring, they're very afraid because they're like, no, you got to contain that and organize it into something
Yep.
packageable and deliverables, everybody's favorite word, something we can
Yes.
deliver to people right away. Because otherwise,
Outcomes and deliverables.
yeah, how do we justify the playing around and the exploration and the like creativity and the curiosity if it doesn't develop into something useful, practical right away? And it's like, well, people who are introverts and artists and creative understand like this takes time. It's a process. The process of life has been eliminated in American culture. Like it's there, but you don't hear about it. It's not till people had to sit at home and be like, oh wow, so that's how they do that. Oh wow, now I have time to see how this is done. It's like, yeah, it
Yeah.
just show up at your doorstep.
Yep.
So I did a room last week when I was doing my walk and talk called Thinking is a Product. So I got the idea of doing another walk and talk the day before. But one of the things that I said was like, if you think about teaching, this goes to your point about researching and teaching. I was like, if you really think about teaching, teaching is really just like discovery and sharing. That's it. Like that's how it should be thought of. Like when I show up into a room, it's like, hey, guess what I just discovered yesterday? And I'm so excited and passionate that I want to share it with you.
Mhm.
Because what do you do with products? As soon as you find that low gas on the way home, or you find like that new phone, or you find that new price on your stream, you're like, you should check out this app. You should check. Like you're so excited to share what you've discovered,
Yep.
and it overflows out of you to the next person, and then that person's like, oh man, guess what I shared? So I was making the argument that like most students are not invited into the room to bring and share what they've discovered because it's seen as like, oh, well, that's just kiddie stuff. That's just that team. Like we don't care. It's not important. So it's not really a shared experience where like two people are coming together talking about their mutual discoveries. And that's why there's no excitement or engagement, because who wants to come into a room and say, okay, pro, this is what you have to learn. And you're like, but
Yep.
no, but I just read this. Nah, I don't care about your articles. I don't care about photons. I don't care about photonics pro. Just listen to what I got to say. You would not want to participate in that in any sense of the word, whether you're an adult or a child, because as a human being, you desire to be invited into something as well. That's what Daniel Pinkett was saying. He's like, I think we have natural curiosity. He said, how do I know? He said, my daughter, I like the way he said, we come out of the box curious. He said, how do I know? He said, I have a little daughter. She gets into everything. He's like, I don't have to teach this.
Yes.
So people are naturally curious, naturally want to discover,
And
and
we quell it.
naturally want to share what they have. But when you shut that down and say, no, you have to listen to what I have to share, but you don't have a voice, yeah, they're going to disengage because they're saying this is not equal. Like, yeah, I get it. You're
Right.
the teacher, you're there to guide, and you're there to like help me with my discoveries. But as soon as you eliminate my participation, it's like, yeah, okay, then I'll opt out of participating altogether.
My proposal is this. This is my proposal, and I got to wrap it up because Henry is here letting me know it's about that time. On a beautiful, almost last day of summer, as we like to say, that I said at the beginning before you jumped in, I was like, I'm not buying this. Give me my 16, 17 more days of summer. Do not shortchange me. No, is this, why not every company do one virtual day? And to the 20% idea, right? That is 20% of your week, and do just 20% of the day. That's what I'm saying. So if you got 8 hours, don't even go a couple hours, because that's 25% of the day, right? Do like 90 minutes of like, if you must, of like webinar time or talking or whatever, and leave the rest of the day for people to do what they got to do, right? One day a week, people look forward to that day, whatever you work at, make that day mandatory, like you're home, you're not at the office, even if you are a brick and mortar kind of traditional business. And if you're already exceeding that, great. But if you're not, at a minimum, and just watch the productivity, because this is my problem with the outcomes, thing too, right? Like we can do a whole show on that, right? We should do our entire introverse thing should be, when we go out there more, be about outcomes. I say, don't ask me what the outcomes are before I write the syllabus. Ask me after I teach the class, right?
Right.
I will tell you what the outcomes are after they come out, right?
Right.
Having me predict what they're going to be before is useful only so far. It's much more healthy to know what happened and have me report out on it. So, what I'd like the faculty to do, and I'd like any company to do the same thing, is instead of getting so hung up on the outcomes, right, is be like, here's what I think might be the outcome. And we're going to have a day at the end where we present what actually did happen. That's just my thing that I think we should do, right? And then take a little less stock on the outcomes up front, take a little less stock on what we think our output's going to be, our achievements are going to be, all our benchmarks. Just say, hey, this is where I think we're going to go, but let's really focus on actually what happened, so that we can just keep doing that. Predict, actual. Give
Right.
that back to people. And maybe you're one day a week, is that's what you're doing. Maybe you one day a week say, hey, how do we do this week? Maybe it's Friday. Hey, how do we do this week? What went down? What worked? What didn't? How are we going to adjust next week for what we think we're going to do? And do that for like, an hour and a half, and call it a day, and let people chill. Give them their 20%. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, the last thing I'll say is I think since the top of the icy lake or whatever is now broken into pieces, that like thick icy lake, which is known as work, is now cracked wide open. It's like, okay, this is the chance to do those kind of things. It's like you don't have to play by the rules anymore, because I think the problem with most people is like they're so ingrained in that statistics predictable model, like you're saying, like they're terrified of giving anybody freedom. So it's like, okay, if you're starting something new, this is your chance to be like, hey guys, from the start, guess what? Results only work environment. We're starting. Like we're not even gonna like do the old way. Like let's build it from the ground up. Because I think just talking about the old model is just gonna get exhausting. So I say, for those who are on board, let's just move forward with these kind of new innovative ideas.
And if you're a teacher out there, involve your students in that day too. Involve your students at the end, and have them say, "Yo, what did we learn?" Like, it's a healthy thing to do for people
Right.
at the end, to sum up what they learned. Otherwise, you feel like you go class to class and like, what the heck did I learn? And by the
Right.
time they're graduating, you have no idea what you learned.
Right.
It's a good thing to do. It just like people with their little notes in the gym. Hey, this is what I did, marking it against what they think they're gonna do, what they did do. Then they look back and they go, "Hey, that's what I did last week." Now, I'm not one to write down what I do in the gym. I'm not that person. I have a different mentality with that. But for people that want to write it down and document or whatever, and that movement's out there and it's real in education, we got to think, why are we writing it down? Is it so that we can just report to somebody else who's quote unquote monitoring us and policing us, or are we actually concerned about measuring what students actually did, based upon the techniques that we used in the first place?
Exactly.
That's why we do what we do. All right, Joe. Well, let me hit that outro music, and
All right.
another one in the bag, baby.